Welcome to the post-election Canada aftermath video. Do you got 15 minutes to spare while I talk about a few principles of astrology, prediction, and what I got right and what I got wrong, and what I'm thinking about after this whole thing happened. So welcome to my channel. My name is Lori Lothy, and I'm using the Western Tropical Zodiac and Whole Sign Houses. This is tropical, not sidereal astrology. And this is a video where on the day after the Canadian election, I'm responding to comments and thoughts I have on my channel about this election, about my astrological readings of the charts that I put out on Saturday, where it looked more likely to me that the Conservative Party may come into a minority government. I'm going to address several things that have come through in the comments today, and about 30 people unsubscribed because they were angry that I called it wrong or that I even tried to call it. Let's talk about astrology. Before we begin, I have a lighter. I have sage. Why am I lighting sage when I start this video with you guys? Because honest to God, it's angry out there, and people are very angrily mean-spirited. In my comment section, I don't delete people and I don't block you. And I let you guys rant over there. I might block one woman. We'll get to that in a minute. But this is for all of us. Imagine that you can smell the white sage, okay? And that you're not letting the way of the vitriol and the hostility, the anger and the trolling, or whatever you're dealing with, get to you. So number one, I have two kinds of people on my channel listening. And most of you are the type of people who are coming to my channel to have understanding of your month ahead, your week ahead, what an eclipse means for your sign, what any particular new or full moon might mean for your sign. And you guys are very generously lovely, because you'll often tell me in the comments, and so do my clients, I can't believe you said this was going to happen, and you're right, and I did get a dog that day, or my dog did pass, or I did in fact buy a house, and I did go on a date and meet someone that week. And this kind of general bell curve astrology for all signs can be really useful for navigating your life. And I do enjoy doing the all signs astrology. Then the second type of people here on my channel, I like the mundane or world astrology, unless they don't like what I say, or if I disappoint you and I get it wrong. What have I learned about this process? Well, I learned a lot. One thing, I doubt that I'll be doing much more political election astrology, because it's too much for me to deal with the anger that comes upon me even expressing what I would like to say about astrology and politics. I said in my video on Saturday very clearly that I was working my best to work around a political bias or preference, because although I've never voted in my life in any country, in any place, even municipally, this is the first election where I felt, for financial reasons, for fiscal conservative values that I hold, I would like to have seen a preference for the Conservative Party to win. Now, that's not like the Republican Party in the United States. So I do realize a lot of you may be confused about that. We don't have a Tea Party. We don't have a religious element. We do not have a vehement anti-pro choice part of that party. And really, I was really attracted to the idea of not having the government spend less money, start bringing in the deficits, having a balanced budget. And therefore, maybe my children one day could afford to live here in Canada, because at this point, it's nearly impossible for young people to move out of their parents' homes or to afford to live. And so that was all, So there you go. And the people who like this kind of astrology, this kind of mundane astrology, I'll stick to things to do with, like, what I got right. What did I get right? I got that Donald Trump may face an unaliving attempt, and I predicted it 2 weeks before, and I even said near July 15th. What did I get right? Biden would step down for probably health reasons and would not run for the election. That's what happened. What did I get right? That VP would pick for Harris would be Tim Walz. That's what I got right. What did I get right? A week and a half ago, the Pope may be dead. There's going to be a funeral for a famous person. It may be the Pope. A week before the Pope died. What I got right. But if you get one thing wrong in mundane astrology and you make one mistake, it's unforgivable. If I was getting everything right 100% of the time, I would probably be something other than a human being. I might be some kind of high-end general, AI bit. What do you call it? I wouldn't be me. I'm a human being. I'm not going to get everything right all of the time. Let's be serious. Now, when I look back at my predictions and how I thought the sky was saying that it looked like a minority conservative government, and in that video, I said it would not be a majority government. What did I get right? One of the things I got right was I said that the Red Party, the Liberal Party would not get a majority. I said, if they get a majority, I'll quit my job. They did not get a majority. For the record, they have a minority government. So in the parliamentary Canadian system, this was a very tight election. In fact, it was extremely tight. The Conservative Party, the party I was hoping might win by getting a minority government, gained about 20 to 25 new seats. And the Liberal Party gained about 9 new seats. It was already a minority government. In our country, you need 172 seats plus to be a majority. CBC Poll Tracker and many, many poll trackers were suggesting that it would be a majority government for the Conservative Party with 189, 200 plus seats. That's not what happened. And that's what I said. It would not be a majority government. Otherwise, I would quit my job. I didn't say I would quit my job if they won. So go back and listen to my video. Number 2. I said that the Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde was in place at the time that Mark Carney called the election. That's our Liberal Party interim prime minister. Now he's the prime minister. And that would mean that something was going to turn around. And what I said during the video was that the gap in the polls would start to close, and it had. It went from looking like the Liberal Party had a 10 to 15 point lead a month ago. And by the time we got to the election, it was neck and neck in several polls with a separation of 2 to 3 points between the two parties. That's a close election. But the way our system works in Canada, you need the Conservative Party to have at least 5 points above the Liberal Party to win based on how our riding systems work. Okay. So what did I get right? I said that would happen. That's what happened. What I got wrong was my interpretation of a solar return chart by Mark Carney with a fallen Mars on the midheaven. And I said that cannot be a good thing. A fallen Mars cutting and severing the midheaven of the person who just stepped into power. Well, it's not over yet. A solar return chart is a year-long story between his birthday in March and his birthday next March. And indeed, the Mars over the midheaven will correlate to approximately November. So we'll see. Maybe something's going to happen in the parliamentary system where in November he may lose power. How could that happen, you ask? Because this is not an American system. What happens in a minority government, Amber, we'll get to you, is that if they want to pass legislation, they need a certain number of votes in Parliament, over 172 votes, in order to pass a law, in order to get something through Parliament, to make it a law. In order to do that, they're going to have to get cooperation from some other parties, like the Conservative, but they'll vote as a bloc. So that won't happen unless there's going to be deals made. So maybe, quid pro quo. Conservatives would say, if you want to pass this bill for an energy pipeline, we'll go with the one for more spending on healthcare, that kind of thing. And the other little parties, the NDP, who lost almost all of its following, is no longer an official party because they don't have enough numbers, or the Bloc Québécois, can actually team up with Carney to get legislation passed, but it can go the opposite way. Instead of teaming up with Mark Carney to pass legislation, they can band together with the Conservatives, which will probably not happen with NDP, but it can happen perhaps with Bloc Québécois on a particular issue. But what happens in a minority government, and Trudeau faced this for an entire year before he resigned, is the ongoing threat of a non-confidence vote, which simply means that the Conservative Party, which has got 144 seats, right now 172, and the Liberals have 168. The last I heard, they're missing 4 to just run the show the way they want, like Donald Trump is doing in America. So what they'd have to do is get support from one of the other parties, and they'd call a non-confidence vote. So in other words, the Conservative Party, could call a non-confidence vote in the House of Commons, and that would lead to another snap election. That's why a minority government is considered a really difficult situation in our parliamentary system, because unless you get a coalition government formed, you're at odds of being deposed or ousted by a snap election call. Finally, the reason Trudeau managed to stick around for so long is the NDP, who had a lot of seats then, now it doesn't, has 7. They were able to form a coalition government and back Trudeau no matter what. So that's how our system works. Hope that was a good little lesson for you. Let's talk about, and then if you're not sure about what our election looks like, I'm going to talk about Amber in a minute and what Amber means. It's an important story I want to share with you guys. By the way, in the Horary at the end of my video, I actually said it's a really tough one to call. I wasn't confident. I said both men are in difficult positions in the Horary. And what the Horary showed was Carney was in the top of the sky. The ruler of the planet that represented Carney in the Horary was getting ready to tip out of the house of power, the seat of the king, whereas the planet that represent Polyev was getting ready to tip into the house of power. And that looked to me like a regime change. Now, don't forget, there is the future. We don't know what's going to happen because a minority government is not a strong government and it can be toppled. Okay. In the next 8 months, in the next year. Okay. Whatever it will be. Now, this is our map. Notice anything. It is a Western blue story. And what this is meaning, more or less, the blue is the Conservative Party. We will talk about this later, but Alberta and Saskatchewan, this is Alberta, this is Saskatchewan, this is a bit of Manitoba, but certainly Saskatchewan and Alberta are particularly ready to cede the nation, to leave and form their own universe, their own country, basically. And it's particularly Alberta, which is this part of the sky. And this is where I live, British Columbia. The entirety of the West, okay, is an energy rich, resource rich, and farming and rural type energy. And that energy has gone conservative. And there are conservative hotspots over here as well in the Newfoundland, that's Newfoundland, and in parts of Ontario. What has happened is we have a divided country. This is a very close election. I think it's 43 to 41% of the popular vote for each of the parties, respectively, Liberal and Conservative. That's high in our country because our other parties fell apart. The Bloc Québécois and the NDP lost a lot of seats. So in this regard, I'm going to simply finish up by saying it is a story to me that looks like our country is just as divided at this point with vitriol and anger as the United States. And I have my black and white earrings on and my black and white bracelet to represent that polarity today with this beautiful Indigenous piece of art from Prescott, Arizona, to show how we might be able to pull something together in a circle and to create some wholeness. It probably doesn't help, by the way, that this happened on the eve of our election. If you ask me, this is election interference, but what can you do? Yes, that's a quote from Trump on, what do you call it? From Donald Trump on True Social. He wrote, vote for the man who has strength and wisdom to cut your taxes in half, et cetera, et cetera. What else he said, I don't know. If Canada becomes a cherished 51st state. Now, in other words, Trump said something that was to endorse Carney. And in Canada, the voters who voted Liberal voted on an anti-Trump platform, imagining that Carney was the steady hand to guide us through the Trump problem. The voters who went Conservative were mostly voting for affordability and decreasing the spending and increasing the balance or the solvency of our government and improving the affordability and standard of living in Canada, which has gone down drastically in the last 10 years. So in that sense, there has been some interference from the United States president. Okay. And for the voters, there's a roofer on my deck working on the roofing. The guy who owned the company probably looked to me to be like 69 or something. And I said, oh, how are you going to vote? Because I was going out to, I was just going to talk to him about my roof because I could hear him banging away. And he said, oh, Trump's a madman. Oh, I'm going to go and fight for Carney. He's the man to fix the problem. And that's the story I hear from a lot of the boomers, right? That I know. Like, I am a boomer. I'm 63 years old. It really was a vote in their mind because they thought an economist was going to deal with the tariff situation better than anybody else. I want you guys to know, in Canada, the Conservatives had a 20-point lead before the Trump tariff thing. They were in place to win the election. Canada would have voted for them. So we're not like the United States. It's not so hardcore. Those people who were going to vote Conservative when they saw the tariffs come in, Liberal, Conservative, when they saw the tariff problem, they swung back to the Liberal Party. So number 3, I got a little thing going on here. I wanted to talk about Amber. There's this woman who trolled me nonstop today on my last video, the one I put out on Saturday. And I want to talk about what I learned from this. She went to the point of accusing me of being a narcissist, because I somehow I am, because I got it wrong. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to remove her comments. I'm going to leave it there for her to stand in her own puddle and pile of anger, vitriol. If anybody else wants to see that on my video, I pinned somebody's sensible comment to the top of the Saturday video. And it was a, you got it wrong. I'm glad you did, but like sometimes, it was kind of nice, but it was also kind of like, hey, you got it all wrong. Then I responded to that person. Then she went all the way through the bottom of that and all through every other comment and started trolling. And the reason I want to talk about Amber is because I often say this. I say that we're stuck in Amber. Like we're souls in reality that came here to, I don't know what, play? Like, let's play in the three-dimensional world. And just like you get flies that go into the sticky sap on a tree and then they get petrified in the amber, I often think of my life that way. I think, am I stuck in the amber? Have I gotten petrified in this sort of surreal, incredibly vitriolic, polarized place called reality? Because I'm bigger than reality, and I'm not just of this world or of this dimension, nor are you. And so rather than, although I tried to respond to her with like civil commentary explaining our parliamentary system and how it works and it was of no use. She just kept coming into attack and it was becoming personal, and I just left the conversation. But I would say the reflection for me is Amber. And the reason I don't want to do many more political videos is it just pulls my energy into the amber. I'm getting stuck like a mosquito or a fly in the sticky sap of evil and good and right and wrong. And, the whole intensity. Like if you dare say that you're a conservative, and I've never been political, I've never voted, I've never even paid attention to politics, and that's the truth. But because I wanted affordability for my children, I was willing to lean into the conservative platform this first time. But then the trolls will come out and tell you that you're evil, you're fascist, you're rotten, you're racist, you're anti-pro-choice, which of course I'm none of those things. And so in that regard, it gets me pulled into the stickiness of this like world where we have to be angry and mean and polarized and ugly and hateful and blaming. It's not worth it. I have this doll for quite a while. I don't know. My sister gave it to me years ago, and it's kind of fun. It says, live, love, and laugh, right? Live, love, and laugh. Certainly, I'm not loving and laughing when I'm having to engage in the sticky amber of the trolls on my channel because they don't agree with me. And where it's the most difficult is political storylines. When I was doing the Trump election this time around, what I did is I started off by saying Trump wouldn't win against Biden. Of course, he wouldn't have. And then as Kamala Harris got into the race, I was really hopeful for a woman because I'm a woman. I love a woman in power for change in the United States, right? So it was hard to stay without a bias on that. There's no doubt about it. And so then at the very end, just before the election, like about 3 days before, I did a Horary chart with my patron community. I had it ready to go on my channel, and I changed my mind. I said, it looks like Trump is going to win. I was so shocked that Horary was so clear that Trump was going to win. I was shaking, and I pulled it off my channel because I didn't want to be trolled. I didn't want to be wrong. I was too nervous, right? And a little bit funny with this one because Mars and Pluto were opposite each other in November when I was trolled to high hell, and about 250 subscribers left me all at once, angry Americans, This time I've lost about 25 subscribers. I suppose they're angry Americans and Canadians. Seems like a lot of Americans watch that video and they're all thinking that Lori's become a Trumper. I don't give a shit about your politics that way. I'm not living there. I'm not voting there. Excuse my language. And no, I think Trump is probably crazy. But I also didn't like the policies of Joe Biden either, right? For various reasons, because some of you know that I'm like a little bit not too happy with what's going on in Gaza, and certainly a government that was funding it blindly, etc. So all said and done, I do have a bias there. Yeah. I prefer that war not have happened for sure, but I prefer that it also have been, cordoned off or reined in by the government that funded gave the money and the weapons for the war to happen. All right. Trump ran on a platform of stopping the wars in Ukraine and in the Middle East. He's not accomplished that. But to me, I couldn't vote, but I mean, I thought at least someone's saying something about it. You know what I mean? I probably got trolled all over the place just for this back end last thing I said. Hope that was no longer in 50 minutes. What did I learn? I learned I'm no longer doing election videos. The only video I might do is if Alberta decides to do a referendum, a vote. And if the people say yes, they want us to leave Canada, which is a big deal here, then I will be doing a video on if that referendum might actually look like a vote in Alberta to leave the rest of the country behind. And the reason they want to do that is the Liberals have historically blocked them from developing their own energy resources. And the government there says, no, that can't happen anymore. And so the Liberals are back in power. And so we shall see if there will be a referendum. It depends, I suppose, on how in the fall the legislative bodies are going when it comes to laws that support energy development in Alberta versus the ones that are punitive toward that. And yeah, let's see how it goes. Thanks for listening, guys. And if you want to like and subscribe and take up some space for the 30 people or 25 people that it dumped out of my channel for, I don't know, getting it wrong. I'm not 100% right. I do have things that I get right. I have some things I get wrong. I get way more things right for my clients, right in general, than I get wrong. And I'm okay with being like 75 to 80% right. If I was 100% right, it would be fucking weird. And excuse my language on also that. But, you know, if you're looking at things in terms of I got 50% of it right, then it's just like a coin toss. I get more than 50% of things correct. I'm going to stick to weather events, earthquakes, things to do with space and aliens, predictions about things that don't have such hot buttons for the world. I was going to work on the election in Australia. I decided not to. I do not want to be in this Amber anymore. And Amber, thank you for trolling me all day today. It's been so nice to get to know you. And if you want to troll me some more, that is just fine. Although at some point I may block you. Bye-bye, guys.